I just passed the CompTIA 701 Security Plus exam. In this video, I will review 280 questions that spans across all the CompTIA objectives. Come with me and let's study together. We will review 10 questions from the CompTIA Security Plus 701, Objective 1.1. Compare and contrast various types of security controls. Question number 1. At a monthly team meeting, the IT manager assigns the male administrator and network administrator to develop a standard operating procedure. What type of control does this task represent? Okay. What we are trying to look for is that they are obviously asking for what type of control. So this is very direct and straightforward. If you know the answer, you can just answer it directly. But if you don't know the answer, what you can do is to first try and eliminate two answers. Okay. So if the IT manager assigns the male administrator and network administrator to develop a standard operating procedure, we know that it's not going to be a technical control, right? It won't be a technical control, so we can take that one out. Now, managerial control. It won't be a managerial control, although some might think it is, right? So now it says assigns. If you're assigning someone to do something, it's not a managerial control. Can it be an operational control? Let's see. Develop a standard operating procedure. It could be an operational control, but in this case, it's not. The correct answer is directive control, right? Now, why is it directive? In the textbook or the manual, the IT manager is essentially assigning this. It's as simple as me telling my son that go and eat your food. That is a directive control. I'm directing that child to go eat his food. Now, in some relationships at work, your manager might direct you to do something, might direct you to create an operational procedure. In some cases, that it's if some people think it's an operational control, now the act of creating the standard operating procedure itself is an operational control, but we shouldn't mistake that for the IT manager assigning the responsibility. The act of assigning that responsibility is a directive control, while the act of creating that procedure itself is an operational control. In some cases, this can be very interesting because we can actually create a managerial control out of this. Now, the decision to say, let us create a standard operating procedure, that one is a managerial control. When the managers, when they come together and they have a meeting and they say, let us create the procedure, that one is a managerial control. So finally, this one is an instruction, is a directive. So this one is a directive control. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Okay, question number 2. An organization has experienced an attack on one of its file servers. The IT administrator is reviewing the log files to determine what occurred. What kind of control is the administrator applying during this investigation? Okay, what's going on here? An organization experienced an attack on one of its file server. Okay, there's an attack. The IT administrator is reviewing the log file to determine what occurred. If you are reviewing a log file, this one I believe is very straightforward. But let us try and eliminate two answers, because that's a strategy that when you don't know the questions, just try and eliminate two and you have a 50% chance of getting the correct answer. We know that it won't be a technical control, because a technical control, you are using technology. Okay. Operational control. We know this is not an operational control because they are not physically trying to put something together and has experienced an attack on one of his servers. Okay. So they are in the detective state. They want to find out what's happening. So the correct answer is detective. Now, if it were a corrective, right, it would be like when you are patching. When they've already figured out what the problem is, that means they've detected what the problem is. The act of actually finding a solution, correcting the problem, that's going to be corrective. But in this case, the answer is detective. Okay, so that's question 2. So when you don't know what the correct answer is, a good strategy to use is first eliminate the wrong answers. If you can eliminate 2 wrong answers, that means you all of a sudden you have a 50% chance of getting the answer correctly. Okay, let's move on to number 3. Okay. The question is, a company employs guards at the gate, the main building entrance, and within an access control vestibule inside the premise. Access is restricted to the office, where the company's data is stored, through 2 more doors secured with RFID locks. RFID is radio frequency identification. What type of control are being implemented in this case? The first thing you should do when you see select 2, always be on the lookout for that. When you hear select 2, because you don't want to go select 1 and move on. Because during my practice test, I used to make this mistake a lot, in which I will select 1 and I'll move on and I'll get it wrong and I will try and figure out why I got it wrong. Okay. How do we get the answers here? A company employs guards at the gate. Okay, guards, that's a physical control. Access control vestibule is a physical control. So this access control vestibule is like a man trap where you enter. The door traps you. You enter somewhere, but multiple people cannot go in at the same time. It's like a revolving door that it controls the people that enters. They say access is restricted to the office where the company data is stored, okay, through 2 more doors. So there are more doors. So what type of control are being implemented by the office? Okay. So we already know that it can't be corrective because they are not correcting anything here. So we can take 1 out. We know these are physical controls. Why do we know that? Because employ guards. Guards are physical controls, and access control vestibule is a physical control. And so this can also be a deterrent control, because when you see a security guard, that deters you from committing a crime. Let's assume that you are at a grocery store or an electronics store and your intention is to go there to steal. If you see a security guard, it deters you from stealing. So going by this, right, we already know that it can be a corrective control. So the 2 options I would choose would be physical and deterrent, right? Those are the logical answers. Yeah, physical control and deterrent control. And like I said, in this case, they're telling you to choose two questions. We already know that corrective is not a choice, and we are just trying to choose two among these three. Deterrent is better than preventive because preventive, you are preventing something from happening. So that will get you to your two correct answers. Okay, now let's go to the next question. That's going to be question 4. What type of control aims to prevent or reduce potential threat before they can cause any harm? Okay. So we want to reduce or prevent potential threat. We already see from here it says prevent. In the exam, when you know a question directly, when it's easy enough, answer it and move on. In this one, just by looking at the question, I'm almost 90% sure that it will be preventive, right? Because it says here, prevent or reduce potential threat. But let's look at it. Is it corrective? It's not corrective. A corrective control happens afterwards. Is it deterrent? We don't see anything deterring it from here, and it's not compensating. So preventive is the correct answer here. This one is direct, straightforward, answer it and move on. So you can bank the time you have to solve more difficult questions. Okay, let's go to the next question, which is question 5. Microsoft has alerted the company's cybersecurity team about an essential update for Windows 11. The team promptly updates all Windows 11 devices within the organization. What type of control has been implemented? Okay. About an essential update. Okay. So we say there is an update. If there's an update, that means that there is a problem already that has happened. Can it be preventive? No, because there's a problem already. So an update is like a patch. Deterrent. It can't be deterrent because there's nothing that is being deterred here. Compensating is an additional control. This is not an additional control. So here the answer will be corrective because this is like a patch and they are just updating their system. Cool. So the answer is corrective. Now we go to question 6. After experiencing a ransomware attack, an organization realized that one of its technical control has failed. What type of control should be implemented to avoid a similar incident? So in this case, one of the controls, which is the technical control, failed. Okay. What type of control should be implemented to avoid a similar incident? So if it failed already, what are they doing? It can be corrective. Why? It's only corrective if the technical control failed and they are trying to correct it. Here, what type of control can be implemented to avoid a similar situation? For one, we know that it's not preventive, right? Because the control already failed. Okay. We know for almost certain it's not detective because in detective, you don't know what the problem is yet and you're trying to figure it out. A compensating control is an additional control that complements the primary control. The primary control here is the technical control. So what type of control should be implemented to avoid a similar incident? It should be a compensating control. That the compensating control will kick in when the primary control, in this case, that is the technical control, it fails. And these are the type of questions that you're going to find on the exam. I just took the exam. The 701, it's very direct. It's not lengthy, unlike some of the test questions that I took. So let's show the answer. Compensating control. Which physical controls could be effective in discouraging unauthorized access to a query? Okay, we want to discourage unauthorized access to a query. Again, there are two answers. It says select two. When it says select two, we have to be very careful. Okay, so let's eliminate a few. Discouraging unauthorized access. So that means it will be a human being that wants to enter, I believe. Signs. If you want to go to a store and you want to steal, and it says do not steal, I'm not sure that's going to help us. So let's try and eliminate E. So E is gone. Okay, lights. Lights can be a good physical control that can deter unauthorized access, but it depends on the kind of place. This is a query. So even if there are lights, it probably won't deter people to have access to the query. So that one too is gone, B and E. Okay. A bollard. A bollards, they kind of stop vehicles. The bollards are when you're trying to enter a military installation and you have these round, small things that can stop vehicular traffic. That's what a bollard is. So a human can easily walk through that. It's a car that can go through that. So in this case, I will select the A, which is a barrier. Like if you have a barrier around the quarry, it will stop people from accessing it. And also if you have security guards, a security guard can stop you when you're about to enter, right? And if you've signed in, the security guard can then raise the barrier. Maybe it's a vehicular barrier, raise it and it will let you in. So in this case, the best two will be to have a barrier and to have guards. Which physical controls could be effective in discouraging authorized access? The answer will be A and D. Okay, let's go to the next question. Number 8. What type of control is primarily responsible for creating protocols and guidelines that improve the effectiveness of organizational oversight? Okay, improve the effectiveness of organizational oversight. That is the main thing. Okay. Is it a physical control? Let's read it again because there might be more to this. What type of control is primarily responsible for creating protocols and guidelines? Okay. Protocols and guidelines that improve the effectiveness of organizational control. Okay. For one, we can remove technical because we know that this is not technical control, and we can remove physical control because we know that this is not a physical control. Now it's between a managerial and an operational control. Okay. Let's look at it because a managerial and operational can be sometimes confusing. It confused me a lot until I got a good grasp of it. In this case, it is managerial. And why? What type of control is primarily responsible for creating the protocols and guidelines? So the managers, they come together to create the protocols and guidelines that, okay, they decide this is what we are going to do and this is what we are not going to do. So they set the overall policy direction for the organization. So that is why it is a managerial control. On the other hand, the operational control, they are like the day-to-day operations following standard operating procedure. That's what an operational control is. In this case, is a managerial control. Okay. Number 9. Okay. Number 9. A cybersecurity administrator chooses to implement homomorphic encryption, enabling data to be utilized without decryption. Which category of control does this action most accurately represent? Okay, to answer this one, we have to know what homomorphic means. But we are going to practice this 2 ways. Let's assume we don't even know what homomorphic means. Let's read the question again. A cybersecurity administrator chooses to implement homomorphic encryption, enabling data to be, okay, they essentially told us what it means. Enabling data to be utilized without decryption. So homomorphic essentially means that you can process encrypted data without decrypting it. So you don't need to decrypt it. This happens in tokenization, in which you tokenize your data. You don't need to decrypt it before processing it. So which category of controls does this action most accurately represent? This is as simple as anything. Answer it and move on. It's not operational. It's not physical. It's not managerial. It's technical. Because when we are dealing with decryption and encryption, these are technical controls. So just answer it and just move on. Okay. So this is question 10. This is the final question in the 1.1. We'll obviously go to the 1.2. My intention is to go as far as all the 28 objectives, which will be 28 questions, right? So what you should do is that after this question, I might just go and answer and start at 1.2, and we just move from there, and I can decide to break it down. So if you're enjoying this, if you like it, comment below on what you think. If you have any questions, put it in the chat, and I will answer your question. Okay, the question is, a third-party compliance audit advised the company to add more detailed instruction to its compliance policies. What type of control would best describe this action? Okay. To add detailed instructions to its compliance policy. It's not deterrent for sure, because you are not deterring anything. It's not operational. Neither is it corrective, because you are technically not correcting something. This is an audit, and they are essentially telling you that they are directing you to add something to be compliant. So this is a directive control. They are telling you to add something, okay? So that is a directive control. So this is 1.1. I might eventually go back to creating more questions about 1.1, but for now, we're going to go to 1.2. Just look forward, comment below, let me know what I can do to improve this.